its owners, Alpha Media USA.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in. We will be starting Straight Talk real soon. Give us about 5 minutes and we'll be hitting it live. We're getting ready to go right now.
Giving you all of what's happening in Saginaw, in the Great Lakes Bay region, all at a grass.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Pretty good.
On KISS 107.1.
There is a clear path forward this November that runs through the United States Senate. As our country presses forward to defeat the coronavirus and bring justice to our communities, who we send to the Senate will make all the
doing today, Rob?
Gary Peters is fighting alongside our community to expand healthcare, stabilize our economy, and protect our elections. John James touted an all-or-nothing proposition when he spoke at Donald Trump's Republican convention. In a pandemic, James supports a healthcare plan that will roll back protections for pre-existing conditions, allow insurers to charge an age tax that raises premiums on older Americans, and increase the cost of prescription drugs. We are suffering economic devastation, yet John James
economic devastation
increase for families trying to make ends meet. John James is 2,000% behind Donald Trump and his failed policies that have brought decline.
All right, you guys that are out there, we're going to get going pretty soon, so stay tuned with me.
On the front line.
We're going to talk about Breonna Taylor and what's going on at the White House. Or what's not going on. So you guys are coming in, please allow StreamYard to share your comments so that we can get your comments. Give me a shout out. Say what's up. Let me know you're out there.
Serve the smallest businesses to recover from the economic mess we're in and to rebuild the economic future our country deserves. We can't just go back to what it was before. We have to build back better. We truly want to reward the work in this country. We have to ease the financial burdens of care that families are carrying. To start, every 3 and 4-year-old child gets access to free, high-quality preschool. Low and middle-income families won't spend more than 7% of their income on child care for children under the age of 5. Advancing racial equity across the American economy. Building wealth for families of color. Building a future worthy of their...
What's up, Rebecca? Great to see you this evening.
Just imagine, we could truly unleash their full potential. I'm confident we can do this. I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message. People that like me for president.
This is the KISS community page where you'll find out about all the events going on in the Great Lakes Bay region of Saginaw, Bay City, and Midland. This September, the Public Libraries of Saginaw is celebrating library card sign-up by giving
What'd you say?
Why people shame me? I hope she didn't say it like that.
What happened?
Who show their staff
I don't like when people say libraries.
or sign up
It's
for
just not a
a
library.
your children are going to
I hope you listen to that again. I just had certain things about certain things, you know.
That was the library.
Supplies are limited. One bag per student. Log on to the KISS community page for more information. Community organizations can submit their events to the KISS community page at least 2 weeks before. Please note that all events on the KISS community page are subject to change as
Okay, not a problem.
COVID-19 guidelines. For more details, log on to our website, kisswtlz.com.
KISS 107.1 is WTLZ Saginaw, home of the Steve Harvey Morning Show, and simply the best R&B all day. Take us everywhere. Your smartphone, the J.O.B., and your Alexa smart device.
Well, good evening, Saginaw. This is Kareem Bowen, and you've tuned into another edition of Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen. I'm so glad that you guys are here and tuning in to another discussion. Today, we've got a lot to talk about. So call your friends, call your neighbors, call your cousins, tell them that Straight Talk is on. I remember when we were kids and we were growing up, there was a commercial that BET used to have on 106 in Park, and everybody would be calling people, hey, 106 in Park is on, and the streets would be clear. Can't wait for that day to come. But until then, let's tag our friends. Maybe you want to start a watch party or whatever is going on for those of you who are listening via social media. For those of you who are listening in on the radio, I want you to lean in for today's conversation because we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. We will be talking today about two very important subjects, and unfortunately, this is all that we will be able to kind of share on today because they're very important. We're going to be talking about the Breonna Taylor case as well as white House down. What's going on at the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? POTUS is in Walter Reed Hospital. So we want to make sure that we give you the up-to-date information. I need to really make sure that y'all get involved in this discussion today as we talk about what's going on with the Breonna Taylor case, because all of the social injustice, the things that we've been doing this past summer, the picketing, the boycotting, all of the stuff that we've been doing, protesting, has all come down to situations like this. And we're going to talk about that on today. But I just want to make sure that you guys are preparing yourselves. Old man winter is right around the corner. In Michigan, we no longer have 4 seasons. Brother Rob, the Rob father's with me here today. We don't have 4 seasons anymore. We just kind of have summer and winter, and then like a week in between to transition. It's the transition season.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, according to Gil Scott Heron, it's still winter in America.
What was that?
As far as I'm concerned, according to Gil Scott Heron, it is still winter in America.
My brother.
And those who know about Gil Scott Heron, winter in America, will know what I'm talking about.
Okay, he's on the D.
Break that classic out and play that.
He's on the D platform on today. But I want to say to everybody that is out there listening, tuning in, let's get involved in this conversation on today. I want to welcome you back. For those of you who are listening on the radio, like I said, please stay tuned to KISS 107.1 FM. If you're listening out there and you get home and you get out the car, you can go in the house and get on Facebook. We have Facebook Live going from KISS 107.1 WTLZ, as well as Straight Talk with Kareem.
KISS page.
All right, so on the KISS page, and then also with Straight Talk with Kareem. But I want, there's so many great things that are going on. I want to give a shout out to everybody out there who has been grinding, getting people registered to vote. The census is now well behind us, I believe.
I hope so.
And I hope that you guys have registered and took the census, so that we would understand exactly what it is that we need to have going on. All right, so so now as we begin to position ourselves, we are under 30 days. We are under the 30-day mark, Rob, as we begin to look towards voting. It is voting is right around the corner. That first Tuesday in the month of November will be here before you know it. But there's been so much that has been going on. But I want to talk about
Can I interject that real quick here?
Okay, go ahead.
Voting is already on right now.
Absolutely.
The last day to vote.
Absolutely. You're absolutely
all
right.
The possibilities you have not to vote, there's no reason for you not to go vote. So you can vote now.
I believe in Michigan we have, it is now, I think that I was just listening to someone that was talking, the NAACP was on before, yes. And they were talking, it is no longer voting day. We used to look at Super Tuesday as voting day, but now it is voting season. Because I think now in Michigan, because our new rights allow us to have about 40 days of voting with pre-register, mail-in votes. So let's take advantage of those rights. Now I'm going to tell you one thing that really bothers me, Rob, that I've been hearing. I've heard so many people out there. That's right. We're going to be talking about Breonna Taylor and White House down. That's what we're going to talk about today. So make sure you let people know, hey, get into this conversation, because you need to know what exactly is going on. But what's been bothering me as it relates to voting, Rob, is I've heard so many people like, Joe Biden needs to give me a reason to vote for him. And I'm sitting there like going, okay, he hasn't talked about any, you got a choice. At this point, you have 2 candidates to vote for. You either vote for Donald Trump or you vote for Joe Biden.
Or you vote against Donald Trump and you vote for Biden, or you vote against Biden and you vote for Donald Trump.
There are no other candidates on the platform. Now, if you would like them to be more, to give more information and pilot, I think that's all very important. We're going to talk about some of the things as it relates to what needs to take place. But for those of you who are listening to us out there in social media land, Barb Campbell, Rebecca Townsend Garth, Ruth Rushlow, Victoria Harris, Frank Sanders, Laura Brown. You guys are coming in. Share this. Let's get involved. Let's have a great conversation. Let the people know that we're going to be talking about Breonna Taylor, and we're going to get right into that, because when I talk about what's on my mind, I got to spend some time talking about this issue with Breonna Taylor. Now, I will tell you guys that when we talk about the majority of us, and when I say us, I'm talking about African Americans. A lot of these names, we've been walking streets, we've been holding signs, we've been attending protests, we've been going to rallies, we've been doing all the, it's so horrible with it, and we have no clue who these people are or even why we are protesting. Say my name, Breonna Taylor, but you don't even understand what's going on with Breonna Taylor. So I want to take a second for today to bring you guys into the conversation in terms of what's going on with Breonna Taylor, because something happened that I was listening to someone and they were saying, we were hoping, justice is blind is what they told me. And I said, I know that they say justice is blind, but there are two forms of justice. Are we talking about African Americans justice, or we're talking about United States Americans, and so there are two different systems of justice. And we're going to talk about this because this is why this is so important for us to be able to go to the polls, because there's a lot of stuff that's happening that you've got to be aware of. So what's on my mind today is Breonna Taylor. And I'm going to give it to you straight, no chaser, no filter. That's the way that we talk about it here at Straight Talk. So I want to give you guys the background. When we talk about Breonna Taylor, everyone knows that she was shot. I see my guy Jeffrey Bulls out there, Charles Monroe. Get to your keyboards, Barbara Littles. All of you guys, I need you guys to get to your keyboards and let's begin to engage in this conversation, because we need to make sure that the things that are happening and are happening with this situation, that they are talked about, that they are exploited, and then we hold the individuals accountable for what is taking place, because this is no joke. This is life in living color, okay? Once again, say her name, Breonna Taylor. That's right. No charges, as you all know, were filed against the officers from Jefferson County that were responsible for killing this young woman. Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old EMT and an aspiring nurse. And she was in her bedroom with her boyfriend at her home, in her apartment, when the Louisville Metro Police Department officers came in plain clothes, and they must arrive just after midnight. Okay, now they had what is called a no-knock warrant. And for those of you that are out there, that means that you literally do not have to knock. You don't have to announce yourself. Now, I need you guys to begin to understand this. This no-knock warrant also allows, they were in there in plain clothes. They did not have to announce themselves, even though they said that they knocked several times and announced themselves. But I know if you come to my house and I'm chilling in my bedroom and she was there with her significant other, who knows what they were doing. But if I'm in there and I got my surround sound theaters, I'm not hearing this stuff. And so she was in her room and the police came in with this no-knock warrant, which means that they do not have to knock at your door. Now, I need you all to put yourselves in this positioning. You are in your home. Someone barges in your home because they don't have to knock. You didn't hear the knock, however that happens. And they have the ability to go in and they have the ability to search and seize. Okay, so this is what I want to do, because many of us are looking at this. Well, the young man, her boyfriend, shot out the door because someone was breaking in the house. He said he didn't know who it was. And there's a whole story that goes on because she was dating a young man, I guess, who believed was a drug dealer. I don't know if that's why she broke up with him or what the situation was, but we see law and order on two different sides here. So she was dating this guy. She broke up and had been broken up with him for months. Right. And so the police had been looking at some things, but I want to hold that because I want to put it all in a sequential order for you all. He did not live there, nor was he there, nor were they dated for months. They break into the house. Her new boyfriend shoots and returns fire because he thought maybe it was this old guy that's coming in, and police return with, I think it was 35 shots or something ridiculous like that, killing Breonna Taylor. A couple of bullets went into the other apartment building. Now, you would think that how can they let this happen without anything taking place? Well, to make a long story short, the gist of what took place is that they were saying that the police officers had a right, because they were fired upon first, to return fire. However, there was no wrongful death. There was no manslaughter. None of those charges were brought up. But the charge that the officer that was charged for shooting into a building, another apartment house, that was not Breonna Taylor's, because he could have hit someone. Now, he wasn't charged for killing the life that he did kill in the apartment that he was in, but he was charged. Exactly. He was charged for possibly having the potential to kill someone who was in an apartment building in another unit. So this is a sad, sad story. I want your commentary on this so that we can begin to talk about this a little bit. So anyways, the guy's name that you got to know is Attorney General Daniel Cameron. His office led the investigation for the death of Breonna Taylor. And what it really turned out to be, it turned out to be a masterclass in how not to indict someone for charges that they should have been brought up on.
It's like How to Get Away with Murder show is what I
Yeah, and it is really one of those situations. Okay, so the officers were executing a narcotics warrant. They told the investigators that they knocked and announced themselves before using a battering ram. And a battering ram is that thing that you use to open doors. It's blunt on one side, it's really heavy, and you use it and you knock in the door. You've seen it before on Rescue 911 and Bad Boys with Cops or whatever. Yeah. So they use it to bash in the door of Miss Taylor's house on the south in her South End apartment. Now, what took place was all of this stuff that I told you. Fire comes, one shot comes in, multiple fire shots come back. One of the officers was wounded. My guy Jeff Bulls, who's out there, he goes, I don't believe that the police officer shot him. The young man shot them because they could not find the bullet of her boyfriend. There were no casings. They could not find out where that shell went, but they were trying to say that he was responsible for shooting the officer that was wounded in that situation, but they never found that out. There's never been any proof, and that is in the grand jury record. And so we've got to begin to make sure that we hold people accountable for what is getting ready to happen. Because I'm telling y'all, something's fish don't fry in the kitchen. Something's fishy going on here, and we've got to make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse of what's taking place. All right, so let me tell you what the problem is here. If it wasn't for an officer swearing untruthfully, this is what happened. So now we're going to talk about why they were there. Okay, a police officer returning fire when he's going in, we completely understand that. That is justified. But the problem with this situation is this. One of the police officers, he swore and testified to the judge that Ms. Taylor was receiving packages from the mail place that were suspected to be the drug dealers' packages. And they never would have gotten the warrant, the no-knock warrant, which I think no-knock warrants, come on, let's throw them out the window. It's illegal, okay? It should be. It violates our constitutional rights. But anyways, they gave them this warrant upon the premise that she was doing this. And this had already been testified by the Postal Service, that she had not received anything from her ex-boyfriend, nothing that was going to his name. She hadn't received anything that was out of the way. So he knew that this information that he was sharing and giving to the judge while getting this warrant was false. There needs to be a charge that comes in against him, because that is falsification of information with the intent to obtain a warrant. That is a crime. That is a federal offense. That is a crime. And so here we see that this guy they would have never gotten the warrant if they would not have falsified this information in order to get this. Now, this is the problem. No one that is local in Louisville, and this is so publicized. This is such a big issue. We've seen this all over the place. And Barb Littles, you let me know. You are out there. You're an attorney. You let me know, what is the recourse? What should be the way what do you think is going to happen with the Taylor family as they move and they begin to look at this, understanding some of these key details that were out there? Now, I need you all to understand that these details that I'm sharing with you all today are a part of the information that is now being released, because the grand jury that was a part of this case was upset because they found out there was information that they never received. So manslaughter, murder, the options for what they could charge were not fully on the table. The information that I'm sharing with you all about the warrant being falsely was not in the information. And in their audio, there's a lot of information that is now being looked at, and now it's going to be necessary for a federal investigation in order for her to get justice. Now, I say that you got to wait for that, because you know who's in charge of that. That means that your guy, number 45 right-hand man, Bill Barr, who is a hand puppet to Mr. Trump, he would be the one that would eventually be responsible for making sure that this is prosecuted and that charges are brought up.
Well, he's still at odds with the FBI director. So if the FBI decides to go ahead with it, then that'll be a whole different matter. But still,
but eventually it'll come down. And so so now something that was a wrongful death, a murder, not just wrongful death, a murder of this young woman now becomes highly politicized. And we see that happening even right now with Attorney General Daniel Cameron. Now, if you have taken note, Attorney General Daniel, and this is so sad because Attorney General Cameron is the mentee of our guy Mitch McConnell.
I can't say it.
He and Mitch McConnell, who is in charge of the Senate, lockstep with number 45. He is the mentor of this young African American Attorney General Daniel Cameron. That's why I say, everybody who's in your skin ain't the same as you are. And so now we are beginning to see what is actually going on, and there is the smellings of a cover-up. Not just the smellings, but the writing is on the wall. The details and the information is there, Rob.
Something in the milk ain't clean.
So what we're now looking at, and I want to continue to take this so that you guys are understanding what's going on, is that no one locally wants to deal with this aspect of the case, the fact that the warrant was obtained with lies in it. So they're leaving it up to the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate and to decide whether to bring federal charges in this particular situation. And this is a process that could take really eons and can't be trusted because I told you, it brings us back to Attorney William Barr. So we've got to make sure that we are listening and paying attention to what's going on.
I hope this doesn't turn into the Trayvon Martin case because what happened with George Zimmerman. That's what went to my mind with the Breonna Taylor situation. When I heard that those cops were not being charged, I thought about, well, geez, is this going to turn into another George Zimmerman type of situation?
You know what? I guarantee you, if it comes down to for us receiving equal justice, I think, and considering that number 45 has taken the stance that protesters and those who attend rallies for social justice for African Americans are now criminals. They're thugs, they're looters, they're robbers. I think that we will come to a situation that is very much the same. You guys let me know what your thoughts are concerning this, because we are in a very dangerous situation because this young lady, people have been protesting she has been much like Floyd, the face and almost iconic in this protest season that has now emerged with the world protesting, and now it has become highly publicized because in order for us to squall the situation, they've made us to where we have to either say we agree with the police or we agree with Black America. And I'll tell you that in most countries, in most cities, and in most communities, people are going to be biased towards law enforcement officers. And we've heard it said, they're all pretty much, they're pretty much good. Most of them are good. There's a few bad apples, but they'll deal with the idea or the concept. And Joe Biden, you don't get my vote. Honestly, you are, because I could never vote for number 45. And too many people have given their blood, sweat, and tears for my vote. So Joe, you're going to get my vote, and I've supported you up until this point. But even he said something on that debate stage that bothered me. There are a few bad apples. We are not giving in or buying into this understanding of a few bad apples. There is a system, and here somebody said that systemic racism doesn't exist. Oh. We are now looking at a system and how they use the system to make justice work differently when necessary, or how to make it work according to how they need it to operate. I'll say it that way. All right, so maybe there isn't two forms of justice, but there is a way that someone has the ability to control justice and that it will operate in a way that they think that it's beneficial to them. All right, so according to the internal police report, the Louisville police were told several times by the intermediates that according to the postal inspectors, as I told you guys, that there was no suspicious or anything otherwise addressed to Jamarcus Glover. That's Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend. So there were no packages that were being addressed to Jamarcus Glover that Mrs. Taylor was getting that were being delivered to her box or to her home. And so this had already been confirmed that there was no connection between whatever packages they were looking for, that this was not his address. He was not on the lease. His name was not there. There was nothing other than the fact that this woman had dated this man that ties her to this whole underground drug investigation process that they're talking about. I see you guys out there. But nevertheless, Detective Joshua James, I'm giving you these names. Joshua James, Detective Joshua James, he's the one who told the circuit court judge, Mary Shaw, that Glover, her ex-boyfriend, was having these packages delivered to Taylor's apartment when he sought the warrant. So he lied to a judge to obtain a warrant, which is a felony. And so we have to make sure that they don't just get stuck on, well, they shot at the police, so the police had a right to return fire. We get caught in that, I got pulled over and this is what happened, and we get mad at, in the car, you get pulled over, they say, well, this is not the time to argue, but what was the reason that you pulled me over for in the first place? Because profiling should be illegal, right? So here's another situation. We cannot get caught up in, she was killed because her boyfriend shot. What was the reason that they were at her home? They were at her home because an illegal warrant that it was, and I say illegal, was illegal because it was lied to get, was being used in order for them to come to her apartment, which was not the address that Mr. Glover lived at. All right. So Shaw, who is the judge here, she told the Courier Journal in the newspaper on last week that she was concerned that the officer lied to her about obtaining the search warrant. All right. And so she has some concerns. I want to tell you how concerned she was. She was so concerned, but she wasn't concerned enough that she would bring him back in. She would not bring Joshua Haynes back in front of her and ask him to explain why he lied to her in this process. And I think that she has a responsibility. And Barb, you let me know. A judge has a responsibility to call someone back in if she was the signer on a writ, on a warrant that was given, and she finds that there's illegal information that was obtained or utilized in order to get that warrant. She has a responsibility to call the individual who gave her that information back in so that they can justify. And you know what? And when she finds out that it's a lie and her concerns or her thoughts have been validated, she has the responsibility to draw charges on the individual who provided that ill or that insufficient information. And so we've got to begin to make sure that this happens, because right now her stance has been that she will just allow the FBI to handle it. Can you believe that, Rob?
No.
Now, if this were you and I, it would be like, just let the FBI handle it. No, they'd be like, you know what? I'm bringing you charges up on what's going on. If this was just an average day Joe Schmo, but I need you to understand that these cases, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, they have the implication of something far greater than just the case themselves, because these cases are crying out for social justice, for justice change, for reformation of the criminal justice system, reformation to the policing system. Now, I'll tell you, I come from a family who has military and law enforcement officers. I believe that we need law enforcement officers, but this concept of policing that we have is antiquated. It is out of date. We no longer are running from plantations and homeless, so they don't have to lock us back up. We've got to begin to change this system. And so these cases that we're now dealing with, especially the situation, are driving a light to the situation and the criminal justice system, policing, all of these issues in such a way that when they are vindicated and when justice is actually served, they will demand a changing of the system. And so this is why this is so important for you guys to stay tuned to this conversation and make sure that you know what is going on. All right. So I want to tell you this now. The Jefferson County attorney there, Tom Wine, and his name is important because Tom Wine is a central figure here. Tom Wine, who is the attorney general for the Commonwealth of this area, he has recused himself from this entire process because he was bringing charges up on Mr. Walker, who was Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, for shooting back at the police officers. So since he was bringing charges up against Mr. Walker, he's recused himself from this entire process. And so any conflict of interest should have disappeared in the moment, because see, what happened was they charged him, then they dismissed the charges once more information came. So there's no longer a conflict of interest between Attorney Wine and this situation, because those charges against Mr. Walker have been dropped. So now there is a responsibility. He has the ability to go and begin to get involved and bring charges up himself, because this is that's the whole thing. Let me tell you why he's not. And someone out there is going to say, you know, well, what are they doing about it? Why isn't anything happening about this? Why won't Mr. Wine? You need these names. You need to write our senators. We're in Michigan or wherever you're hearing this broadcast. Maybe you're in Texas, because we see this on social media as well. You need to write your congressman and say, listen, I want you to begin to advocate on behalf of bringing charges up. Let Mr. Wine know that this cannot just fall through the cracks. We don't want it to have to go all the way to Washington, D.C., to the bureaucrats who have already told us that they're backing the blue. You understand? And so you need to make sure that your voice is being heard. Let those individuals know that you put in office. This is a political season. Your words, your letters, your calls have more power in this season than they ever have before. I'll tell you, after November and the votes are counted, they ain't going to think about nothing that you have to say. You lose your ability to say whatever until the next voting cycle, and they'll position themselves a year before it's time to get your vote in a way so that they can get you to ingratiate it to vote for them again. So we need to cry hard and cry loud and let them know that we will not let this thing fall through the cracks. All right. So now Mr. Wine has the ability to go in and to now bring charges up, since there is no longer any conflict of interest. But I'm going to tell you why the judge, why why Attorney Wine and all of these individuals have not, and what they are afraid of. They're worried that it's all political. They're worried because, just as we saw here in the situation with Neil, the young kid that was in here that was tased so many times, what happened when that police officer got fired? The FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, then show up on the scene. And the FOP ain't nothing to joke with. And you know, they're going to come in and they can make your life a living hell. You know, if you begin to have issues with them, they can find a million reasons to pull you over and never be prosecuted or have issues with it. They'll find reasons to target it. And this is what happened. This is the real world. And I know it sounds like
they're mafia within his own self.
Right. This sounds like, you know, something on TV, but the reality of the situation is that they did not want to have to deal with the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, because they have a fear that they will work against them in their upcoming elections. Now, when that happens, now you have thousands, hundreds, tens and twenties of thousands of individuals that are backing the decisions and the movement that they make. So if you decide to make a stance against me, guess what? In your next election, we're going to stand in opposition to you to make sure that you don't get in or reelected. So it's important for us to understand that we've got to begin to make sure that this system does not just railroad us, but we have to stay focused, to stay connected. And it's time for Wine to come out of hiding. Mr. Wine, Attorney Wine, it's time for you to come out of hiding and present the evidence about the search warrant to the grand jury. All they have to do is say, look, we have this information that shows that this search warrant was tainted with information that was incorrect and wrong. When I saw the $12 million, and y'all tell me what y'all thinking out there. When I saw the $12 million bribe or payoff, when I saw the $12 million payoff take place, I realized that we were not about to have justice here. We'll pay you $12 million. That is what we value the life of that young woman. Now, if you were to ask her parents, if you were to ask, hopefully, Mom, you're out there. If somebody asks you, I'll give you $12 million if I can kill your son, you would love me too much because you would say that money cannot replace me. But this is what, you know, the system does. We place the value of $12 million on your child. Does this not sound like modern day slavery? I mean, okay, you know, get up on the block and we want to buy you. And this is the value that we're going to pay you. And you have nothing. We're going to give you $12 million for your child. And we're going to call it even. Well, so when I saw the payoff take place, I knew that we were in trouble because two things happened. One, the money came in. And the next thing before the decision was to be made, they called in the National Guards. So they were like, they're not going to like what we're getting ready I thank you. My mother's out there on social media. She said, I'm not having it, son. At least you got to give me 20 million. 20 million, I might have to think twice. I love him a whole lot, but no, I love you too, Mom.
But there are people who value money because they think, well, I got lawyer bills to pay and all that. But if you value a life, there is no no matter how attractive it is.
And when you look at this, if you look at this bill here that they're probably going to get, I don't know what the fees are, but you take 12 million attorney fees out of that, the family walk away with 6.
But how could you live yourself, though? Someone gave me $12 million because they killed my son. How could I live myself spending any dollar of that? I will be haunted. If I love my son that much, I could not do that. I just could not do that.
So I'm saying to you all, there was a system that was in play. So when we begin to look at this, we got to remind ourselves that Attorney General Cameron, who is the mentee of Mitch McConnell, he actually was at his wedding a couple months earlier. So there's this relationship. They knew what this answer should be. We have to make justice look the way that justice needs to look, because if this comes out, then this means that everything that we have been fighting for, we got to make it look consistent across the boards. There are no, there are a few bad apples, but there is not a system that is problematic. You don't understand? There's not a problem with the system. There's a problem with some training. There's a problem with a few bad apples, but there is no need to overhaul the system. And that's what we're fighting against in this particular situation. So let Mr. Attorney Wine know that it's time to come out of hiding and present the evidence to this search warrant to the grand jury. If laws were broken, people need to be charged and held accountable, and we shouldn't have to wait around for the feds to do something about it. Come on, my people. It's time for us to stay tuned, stay connected, and we need to get it taken care of right. All right, so I want to make sure that you know that I'm going to continually keep you abreast of what is going on with the Breonna Taylor situation. But what that will do is it reminds me, as you said, of the Trayvon Martin situation with Mr. Zimmerman, but it also brings me to a place that I have to pause as to what would be the outcome of the George Floyd situation. It makes me think about all of the other cases that are pending, that they'll wait forever. It's been forever for Breonna Taylor to receive even the court hearing to even give us this faction of justice. And so they'll push it along because at the end they know what they want the outcome to be. So we have to make sure that we are keeping our ear to the meal and we understand what is going on out there. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in. All of you that are out there, we're going to begin to take a quick break. And after this break, I need y'all to understand something. We are going to talk about White House down. 911, we got a code red situation, man down. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to continue this conversation. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
This election is bigger than politics. It's about the things that matter.
All right, cool.
I'd like to play the spots and do a show that way I can just take a show up to the top of the hour.
No, that's perfect.
Go into the other, because otherwise I have to close the show out early to play these spots.
All right, I want you guys that are out there in social media land to let me know if you've been following the case with Breonna Taylor. Let me know what's going on, what your thoughts are about what we've been seeing. Great seeing you, Betty Plowden, Beanie Riley, Mom, I love you. Rick Zapp, I'm glad you tuned in. We don't always agree, but I'm glad you're tuning in to listen. It'll give us some more fuel for the fire, right? Olivia Kincaid, Rosa Williams, Sheila Meredith, Deidre Jones, Diana Michelle Perkins. What's going on down there in the D? Marshall Thomas, Jerry Bowen, Anthony Bell, Victoria, all of you all that are out there on social media, Lamar Norman Sr., Charles Monroe, Barbara Littles, all the way in West Virginia. I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. Let's make sure that you let me know where you are on this conversation. But what are your thoughts about what's happening with this Breonna Taylor situation? And how has this protesting, do you feel that this protesting that we've been seeing in the marches, have they had any meaningful impact when we begin to see these types of things that are yet playing out amidst these things yet taking place? Let me know your thoughts, comments, concerns.
30 seconds.
All right.
We know you're busy, so vote on your own time. Check your calendar and carve out the time to vote. Remember, your voice matters. Your vote is your voice. There's so much on the line for our communities this election. Don't sit on the sidelines. The time is now. Make a plan and vote in person before Election Day, November 3rd. For more information on voting, visit michiganvoting.org. Paid for by the ACLU of Michigan.
It's Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen.
What's going on, Straight Talk, Michigan Bay region area? So glad that you guys are out there. So many of you have tuned in today via social media, and hopefully you're maybe listening to us on the radio on KISS 107 FM. Hopefully you're tuned into Straight Talk. We are here every single Sunday at 6 p.m. Coming in to share with you the events and the information that is necessary concerning you from Wall Street to Main Street. And how do we give it to you straight? No chaser, no filter. All right, so we want you guys, I want to thank you guys for staying with us as we went on that short commercial break. We will be with me till the top of the hour. All right, you know we were done with Breonna Taylor. Those of you who have come in late, please go back and listen to this particular show. You can catch it in podcast form. If you go to kisswtlz.com, when you go to the page, you'll now see this beautiful, lovely face pop up on the home screen. And you can go there and see this will be on a podcast, and you'll be able to listen to it, play it, take it with you, however you get your podcast information. You can check it all out right there on kisswtlz.com. All right. Also, 107.1 FM. The radio is still the best place to get information. And then you can also catch us on social media at kisswtlz.com on social media on Facebook. And then you can catch me, Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen, here on Facebook Live, or also on YouTube. All right. On I Grow Daily. All right. So make sure that you stay connected and get informed with this conversation. We are going to transition slightly on in this moment. And I'm going to start with, I believe it was a week ago. Was it Tuesday? Was it a week ago? It was last Tuesday. Wow, time flies so fast. On last Tuesday, we saw our first presidential debate. I believe it was Tuesday. If I'm not right, then somebody correct me. It was Tuesday. All right. The Rob father said that it was Tuesday. All right. And on last Tuesday, we had our first presidential debate of the 2020 presidential season. Trump versus Biden. All right. And what word could I use to describe what we saw? Deplorable, fiasco, disappointing. All of those words would probably fit how most of us felt. And as I was watching, I was tuning into social media and looking what people were saying on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And I think the nation and the world alike came with the same understanding that what we saw was it was unacceptable. For our world leaders to behave in such a way that it took, the turn that it was absolutely unacceptable. Now, I want to say this, and some of you may disagree with me, but number 45 is the president. And this is something that I saw with President Obama. Someone called him a liar and an idiot, but he is the president. And he, you may think of whatever it is, but in a national setting where you're not just representing, you're vying for the top seat. Even though I have all kinds of feelings about number 45. I don't even say his name. I have a number of feelings about number 45, what he stands for, what he says, how he operates, what he does. Joe Biden, who I hope will be our next president of the United States, he gave him the Clown Crown Award. Now, somebody said, what's the Clown Crown Award? The Clown Crown Award is an award that I give out to people who have really just been fooling. So this week, since Joe Biden said it, I'm going to follow suit, and the Clown Crown Award goes to number 45. My prayers are with you, my man, but you get the Clown Crown on your behavior. Because being a third grader and as the leader of the free world is never acceptable, okay? It's never acceptable. But Joe, you got to tighten it up. I saw a meme with him and President Obama, and President Biden said, I told you that when they go low, we go high. And Joe said, I told him to shut up, man. It was funny, but you got to think these are people who are representing our nation. And so even Mr. Biden, former Vice President Biden, we got to do better. We got to tighten it up. Name calling is never acceptable, just as the crazy jargon and arguing and bullying people is never acceptable. So it started. So this whole I'm starting here because on the debates took place, and when we looked at the tenets of the debate, and if we were to say, okay, this is what we covered in the debate, we would say that, the economy was discussed. We know that Trump says that he has the best economy ever. He did so much better than President Barack Obama. But when you go back and the economists look at it, President Barack Obama has created more jobs in his first term as president than number 45 has. President Obama, he inherited a fledgling. It was almost the worst recession since the Great Depression. And he turned that thing around. He saved the auto industry, and everything about what he did was not good. It was not great. There were things that I would have loved for him to do had he had a Congress that was in step or in sync with him, but he did the first couple of years, and I would have liked to see more things take place as well. I'll say that. But what I don't understand is when we began, they were talking about the economy. They also talked about the justice appointment. We understand there is a new vacant seat on the Supreme Court. And so now they have made their nominations. They're going to push it through, even though we saw Lindsey Graham talk about how if there was ever a position that came available that and the political season had already started, that they would hold off until the next president came in office because they refused to allow President Obama to get his political appointment in. And that was their state. If this happens with President Trump, we will not fill the position. So we see that your word never matters. So now we are in a position that they're rushing through that. So they talked about the Supreme Court justice appointment. And then they began to talk about the issues of civil unrest. They began to talk about the issues of social justice. And they asked the question, does systemic racism exist? Are our systems polluted with strands of racism that make it impossible or very difficult for people of color, POCs, ADOS, descendants of slaves, American descendants of slaves, if it makes it difficult for them to receive equal justice under our current situation and our current laws? And so, Joe Biden was like, hey, systemic racism exists. I see it. I understand it. We have to change things. And I was like, okay, kudos, Joe. You did it right. Number 45 then began to talk about, they addressed him about what happened he passed legislation outlawing. And I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying, because many of this probably went under the radar for many people. He passed legislation. I'm not sure if it's legislation, executive order, whatever it was, outlawing racial bias training in the federal government. Now let me explain.
Executive order. There was no.
Yeah, it would have to be executive order, right? So, but what I'm saying is that he banned racial bias training from taking place in the federal government. Let me explain to you all, because I do racial bias coaching, cultural competency training. And I need you all to understand this. When we talk about racial bias, a bias is something that we have based upon our history, our experiences, our past, and they change. They create schemas, and they determine how we see the world. And so if we live the world in a particular way all of our lives, and we have experiences that are consistent with where we live, in the neighborhoods that we live, with the neighbors that we lived in our neighborhood, then we will see the world through a certain lens. And it's not about whether it's good or bad, but it's how we see things. And this happens across the board. This happens in Black communities, white communities. It doesn't matter. We all have biases. There is a bias that many African Americans have as it relates to police officers. And so bias training, racial bias training, it is a way for us to communicate effectively. Of what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, and then what are our blind spots? Right. What are the things that prevent us from being able to see things through a different lens, or what are the things that skew or change?
What things build that make that bias to begin with?
Absolutely.
That bias there, and let's take it apart to see what we can do about it.
Why do I feel this way?
Right.
Now that I know that I am biased in this particular situation, what this training then does is it shows us how to unpack that bias to get to the root of that particular situation. So now that I understand that I have a bias for police officers, now I have to ask myself the questions. Okay, so have you ever engaged with a police officer negatively? Okay, what was the outcome? Have you ever had a positive engagement with police officers? What was the outcome? Okay, and you get down and you work through the core of the issues till you get to the root of the problem. And the problem may have been you were 3 years old, your mother and your father got into an argument, and as a 3-year-old or 5-year-old, whenever you start remembering, you saw the police officer take your father away because there was a domestic dispute between your mother and your father, and they were simply doing their job.
And it left you traumatic.
And it left you traumatized or with some
and that sort of
absolutely. So now we begin to see that that's kind of what racial bias does. It takes how we view the world and it challenges us. And this is how we become our best selves. And so this is, someone asked me the question, Rob, when I was on WSGW. They said, dude, is all you do is think about race? Do you wake up in the morning and all you think about race? And I said, no, I don't. No. Honestly, I don't. I go through my life and I live my life and I very rarely think about race. But it is my life and my existence as a black man.
It is a fact.
And the world.
You go through the world there and not think about race until something happens to you.
And it reminds me that I'm a black man. And so
it's something I have to remind my son all the time. I said, everyone's not your friend. I said, but remember, you are a black man first. You'll be seen as that. For you, open your mouth. You'll be judged as that.
Absolutely. Now, I don't wake up and I don't go out and be like, okay, I'm a black man, go to work today. Exactly. Because I have been blessed. I grew up in a diverse community. Well, it was diverse on the opposite side, but I went to a great university for school. I've had great experiences and opportunities and employment. I'm here on the radio with you wonderful people. So my life has been very diverse. My friend pool is very diverse. So I don't wake up with those issues or those concerns, or I don't see myself that way. However, what I realized really quick is that I can put on a suit, and when I arrive at my church, they know who I am. If I go to a particular corporate setting and I've got clearance, they understand who I am and what I represent. But when I throw on my hoodies and my sweatpants and my t-shirt and my jogging pants, I realized that who I was and what I represented in that other situation, that other outfit, it becomes different. So then I am seen differently. Therefore, I sometimes, and we sometimes have guards. We put guards up because of those biases.
And those biases create stereotypes.
Absolutely. And so it's important for us to understand that this training is a great way for us to begin to have conversations about race and relationships. I think that, and I say in the tagline for this show, that we can change anything that we can have a conversation about. That's why it's called Straight Talk. When we have honest conversations about things and we say, you know what, my goal for this conversation is that I'm not going to offend you. And if I do, please make me aware. I'll be quick to apologize and you be quick to forgive. And when we set some parameters to have those conversations, and that's what racial bias training is about. It's about saying, listen, we're going to have this conversation, and race is a very tough topic. It's a hard conversation to have.
It makes people uncomfortable.
It makes us uncomfortable. But you know what I realized? That when we're comfortable, we don't change anything.
Right.
When my bills are paid,
you're in your comfort zone,
and I got food in the refrigerator.
But you don't think about anything until something happens to you.
I'm not thinking about anything. But when there is a system that causes me to have low on food, or I'm short on money, then we begin to change our situation because the situation dictates it. So I want us to understand. So this is, and I'm talking about this because this came up in the debate. So we went from the debate, we heard that conversation, and then we got into this idea, which is absolutely crazy, about denouncing white supremacy. And, Joe did what Joe did, which it was politically correct. And, that's what it is. And he should say that because it was the African Americans, Clyburn in South Carolina, that resurrected his campaign. But number 45 told us to stand back and stand by to this particular hate groups like the Proud Boys. And the Proud Boys, they just don't like anybody who ain't American. So I guess, that's what they represent themselves as. Then we continued on in this conversation, and this is where we're going. So we talked about justice appointments, we talked about civil unrest, social justice, systemic racism, and then we talked about COVID-19. And I thought this was very telling. Joe was talking about Vice President Joe Biden was talking about how he wears a mask, and Donald Trump mocked him. He mask shamed him on the stage, saying every time we see you got a mask so big we can barely see your face. And in a time when our nation needs leadership, you know, Rob, before I was coming in, I was looking and at Fox and CNN and Headline News and getting numbers, and you know, we are well over 200,000 cases of coronavirus. And then I was looking at the places that were initially hit really hard. New York City, where where their semi-truck carts and beds basically became, you know, refrigerated carts became the morgues because they had no place to put the bodies. They're afraid because those numbers are starting to resemble the upward trend that they were at the very beginning of this pandemic. And so now Mayor de Blasio is starting to say that there may be a need to begin to shut things back down. So he's making the decision, I think very soon, everything that is non-essential, once again, may be shut back down. And I need America to hear what we're saying. Saginaw, listen to what I'm saying.
Especially now we're in the fall, because that can happen right now.
Absolutely. Because we also are entering into the regular flu season. Right. So we have to understand that this virus is real. This virus is still here. And so we saw number 45 make a mockery of it. And I'm getting to the fact that once he did that, we then saw within a couple of days, this past 30, POTUS, the President of the United States. That's what POTUS stands for those of you who have been like, why are they calling them POTUS? POTUS tests positive for COVID-19. And yeah, and this is what this breaks. Honestly, Rob, this breaks my heart. I got the air quotes, but honestly, this breaks my heart. And I want you guys to understand why this breaks my heart. Because we now live in a day and time, and I'm skeptical of the government as a whole, right? But we now live at a day and time when we cannot trust those who should be inspiring the best of us. We can't take them at their word. And it's not just, you know, number 45, but it's a whole administration that spins things. Now we got hospital staff that is spinning things. Sean Conley, his personal doctor, you know, he's been called out and he's coming back trying to like, what has happened to decency and humanity and just respecting the American people enough to tell us the truth? And I'll say this, I'm not making a mockery. My prayers, I call him number 45. That's my personal thing, because I don't want to disrespect the man, because he is our president, even though he's been so disrespectful to so many people. But I was taught, and I can never allow what someone else does to move me off of what my moral character is, that you don't disrespect the position. Now, the individual may be a joker, you know, something to deal with, but you have to respect the office that that person has and that they hold. Absolutely. Deanna's, pray for Trump. Now I'll stand down and stand by and say, no, Deanna's, we have to make sure that in this season that we realize that us owning and holding on to our humanity is our personal choice. And I prefer to listen to the words of my grandmother, who told me that regardless of how someone treats you, you're not responsible for how they treat you. You're responsible for how you treat them. And in this season, I'm going to be praying for our president. I'm going to be praying for all of those who are infected, because I don't want anyone to suffer ill from the coronavirus, because I would never wish that on anybody, because I wouldn't want it in my family. And so even in this I respect the office of our president, and my prayer is that our nation would wake up and people would vote to rescue. I think that we are in a place that we are fighting for the very fabric and the heart of what our democracy stands for. It's time for us to vote. So he tests positive for the coronavirus, and then this show begins. Sean Conley, who's his personal officer or doctor, comes out. He gives us this rosy report. Then there's a secret report that is given out by staff, his chief of staff, Mark Meadows. And I wanted you guys to understand that I don't know if he's sick. I was waiting for October surprise. Okay, he's sick. Now we're getting the virus, the vaccine. It's there, and so I didn't know what. And I still don't trust the government to understand what is going on.
You mean Trump's getting COVID? It's not this October surprise you've been waiting for, or was it too early for that?
I'm not playing them games with you, Rob. All right, so but this is what I want to say about this. So it goes on. He's infected. So he gives one report. It's rosy. Mark Meadows, because I think Mark doesn't want to be tied. If something should happen to our president and people are giving misleading information, regardless of who gives it, and I don't think that he wants the responsibility of saying that the president was okay when something goes wrong. He said, hey, the next 48 hours are very critical. But what I want you to understand is this. Now, in November, we will be voting for, really, healthcare is on the line. This guy, anything that says Obama on it or Barack, he is really in a position that he is trying to take anything that says Barack Obama, whether it was good, bad, or ugly. So we are fighting for those 12 million Americans, I believe it is, or however many Americans that it is, that are yet being, that are covered, that have pre-existing conditions, that have health insurance for the first time because of Obamacare. Now, I want you to understand this. When when number 45 went in for his treatment, he gets the best treatment. He doesn't have to worry about whether he can pay the insurance bill. He doesn't worry about if there's something out there that he can or cannot afford. And so I need you guys to understand this. So he goes in. Absolutely. And I respect that. But I need you to understand that when somebody mocks wearing masks and then they get what you have, then they want to say, hey, I wanted to. No, come on. We got to understand this. His symptoms were high fever. His oxygen levels depreciated below 90% because they said that they weren't below 84%. So this is a serious situation. Fatigued, hurting, all of these things. But he was able to get some drugs here. A monoclonal antibody treatment. It's a cocktail of proteins that they put together, probably tied to an RNA strand to bring forth healing, that has not been approved for mass use, but because he is the president, because he has the ability to afford it, he's going to get it. Remdesivir, this has been approved antiviral, authorized for emergency use. He's going to get that. It's not widespread, but it has been authorized. Then there's another steroid, dexamethasone, which is a steroid used on severe cases of people. So this means that he is in a pretty bad situation if they are using these things to take care of him. An antacid, some zinc, some vitamin D, all of these other things. I said all of this to say this. We have to be aware when we mock things and we use things for our own political use, that sometimes the snake that we let out of the cage comes back to bite us ourselves. Now, does that mean we sit there and say, see, we told you? But no, I am hoping that he emerges from this situation, if he really does have it, with a new sense of understanding of what America has been dealing with over the past 8 months or 7 months. It's important for us to realize that we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves. That means that we wear a mask, we social distance, we get out and vote, and we get out and vote. I want to thank you guys for tuning in on today. I want to remind you guys there's a new show that'll be coming up on WSGW. More details to come. It'll be United Shades of Gray. We'll be talking about race and relationships with races in America. Stay tuned for more information on that. And I want to leave you with these final remarks. Being human is a given. Keeping our humanity is a choice. Who are we as human beings if we ignore the sufferings of others? I want us to take care of ourselves and each other. Let's appreciate the best part of us as we go into this election cycle. Remember those who died so that you take care of the right that you have to vote. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves and each other. Grace and peace.
You've been listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.